Yeah, definitely. Definitely the most memorable 1 year, 8 months
All
of my
right.
life.
Yeah.
I feel like it feels like just yesterday that we got married, right?
Yeah. A lot has happened in 1 year, 8 months. A lot.
Okay.
I
All
know.
right.
It feels like 10 years packed into 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you said, uh, well, how did it start then? Let's get to how it started.
Do you want the
Yes.
ladies' version or the guys' version?
Let's start with the ladies'
Let's
version.
start with the ladies'
Then, if
version.
there is
Okay.
time, we will get the guys' version.
Okay.
Exactly. Mine is very brief. Yes. So January 2016, I was working for a corporate in Kenya. I've been working there about a year and a half. And then I learned that there's a new guy who's going to be joining our department. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I really didn't think much of it until I saw him. And then I was like, "Ah, this guy is so handsome. He's just so handsome." Uh, and I think he felt the same about me. But I remember the first time that we actually met, I think it was in February. And I remember hugging him for the first time and just instantly feeling like we're gonna.
So
It
how?
was a lingering hug.
Okay, wait.
It was a very lingering hug, yes.
How do you get to hug? Was it your first meeting?
Yes, it was our
Yeah.
first. I'm a very friendly person. It's
Okay.
just the way that I'm extremely friendly. So
Okay.
To
generally,
quote her, she said, "It feels like I already know you. I think we
exactly.
should hug."
That's exactly what I said actually. Yes. And I don't know, there was something about him that just so inviting and just so calming. And then in March, 1 month later, we started dating. 5 months later, we got no, 18 months in July, August. Yes, 5 months
5 months.
later, we
We
got
got
engaged.
engaged. Yeah.
All right.
A few months after that, we had our traditional wedding, and within a year of having started dating, we were married.
Huh. Let me hear the
Oh,
gentleman's
no.
version. Because that's too
So
fast.
Have I done our story justice?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. So I'll give my perspective of what I saw. So taking on from that part for the hug, what she didn't tell you is that we used to sit opposite each other. So the
Ah,
game was already rigged.
Yes,
okay.
So I
exactly.
constantly
Okay.
had to see her every day.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
was
because
like,
I was
oh no.
wondering how you
Yeah,
just meet somebody who's joined the department on the corridor and you like, I feel like hugging you.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So let's just say sitting opposite her didn't hurt
Okay.
because I was constantly inspired to find ways to
So were you
like
actually
make
working? Were you
myself.
guys working? Were you
We
productive?
were
I was
working by the
working.
to the employer by the we were
Yes.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing though that helps our story is that within the first few weeks of us having met, I had a bad accident with my car.
Oh yeah.
And my car, so it was in the garage for about 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, you know what? I don't mind dropping you home. And I lived in Langata, very far in Langata, and he lived in Parkland. So I was like, that's very out of your way. Are you sure? And he was like, no, I don't mind. And so for every day for 10 weeks, he dropped me home.
Wow.
That
So
that was my way
strategy.
to her heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, we
Was
had a
that
lot of
deliberate or you were
fights.
just being
No, it
kind?
was. It was actually out of my way to drive to her place because I used to live in Parkland, like she said, and she used to live in Langata. So, and we used to work somewhere in industrial area. So I used to drive her all the way to the house. We'd sit, chat in the car, and I think that's where the love blossomed
Exactly.
because we
That's how love
started
started.
finding out that we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
But how did that sit with your colleagues, um, with your bosses? They didn't mind you.
It was a secret.
yes.
We dated in secret.
married, um, when we got married, she already had a son, who's my son now. And so nothing really has changed in terms of have the kids changed our marriage situation or not. We already knew that we had a son and we expected to have 3 more.
No.
I'm joking.
Unless you're giving birth to those three, I don't. No, but now we have a daughter as well, who's
Yeah.
1 year old. So when we got married, I was already pregnant. So she's 1 year old now, and I wouldn't say she's changed our marriage so much. No, I would say having them has brought more joy
All right.
to our marriage. So I mean, I feel like even, for example, when we have a fight or like I'm mad at him for something, just being around him and being with the kids, it kind of just makes the situations lighter. It makes us
Even the
happier.
fights
Exactly.
less
Less
intense.
intense.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What do you fight about? Because you seem to be in love. So what do you fight about?
What don't we fight about?
By then, the smallest thing, a response from her in a certain way that I perceive to be
Rude.
rude or disrespectful will cause a fight. I mean,
Yeah.
it's as small as that. And
Exactly.
what I've realized is sometimes even when she's saying something in a joking manner, if my mood is not in a joking manner, it will
Yeah.
spark a fight. So
Exactly.
it's just learning each other and when to push the boundaries in terms of jokes and what.
For me, I get upset with him when he doesn't communicate, which is apparently something many men do.
Like a
And he
default
has,
setting.
yeah, so when he's upset or like when he's had a bad day, he'll just shut down and just like not talk to me. And to me, I'm like, what do you mean? Why are you not talking to me? Kind of thing. Because I'm an over communicator. I like to tell people. So me, I'm always like, let's
Yeah.
talk about it. Let's deal with it. Let's. But for him, he's just more of like, I need some time to think about things, which sometimes now causes conflict
Yeah.
between us.
Yeah.
All right.
We both have our own individual ambitions. Like before we got married, I told her that I wanted to get a motorbike just to get it out there so that things don't change when we get married. And funny enough, people still wonder how I got a motorbike and I'm married.
Right? You
Yeah.
have the coolest wife ever. Thank God. Just thank God. For me, I feel like
Yeah.
it's really, really important because just for your own sanity, as a wife, as a mom, it's like it can get really overwhelming sometimes, and it's so important to sometimes just take a moment to breathe because before I was his wife, before I was a mom to my two little kids, I was just Joanne and I was just myself, and it's important to never lose that about you because at some point your husband, anything could happen to your husband, your kids could go, and you'll just be left there, and it's just you, and you need to know who you are, and continue to build the aspects of about yourself that you love and that you like.
All right.
Not just when I am dead.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
You're not gonna die.
But it's also it builds resentment when
If you
one
don't get
spouse
to,
is
yeah.
preventing the other from achieving whatever life goals they have.
True.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. You talked a bit about the fights. I just want to bring out something like, how do you resolve conflict
Work
when
in
there has?
progress.
We are
Well, I
still
know
working on that.
everybody's work in progress, but how do you resolve
Exactly. What
conflict?
we try to do, what we are trying to build towards is being able to communicate, to voice out in a very mature way what it is that upsets you. So for example, and he's still working on this, but for me, whenever he does something to upset me, I'm usually very able to say, Zach, you did this and this and this. It made me feel this way, and I'm very angry with you. I would like you not to ever do it again, or I would like you to apologize because, and then we'll usually have like like a long conversation around it. We are still
Is that
trying
face
though.
to face or on text?
Whichever.
Yeah.
One sometimes it's like on text, sometimes it's face to face. But the importance is
If the fight
communicating.
happens
Okay.
on Sunday, it will be on
It
text
will be
on
on
Monday.
Monday,
Yeah.
exactly. You already know, right? Sometimes it extends longer than it must, especially if it's him who's upset because he's still learning how to communicate. Like he can just go
Yeah.
silent for like 3 days. He's
But
not even saying.
the reason that happens, and it's also good to be self-aware, is when things pile up over time and I don't speak to her, they blow up at some point as a big issue. So what I've learned to say is when I'm disappointed about something at a point in time, I just mention it. And then it sort of takes the energy, the bad energy out of it,
Exactly, yeah.
so that it doesn't grow up and
Become
become
exactly.
a it was progressively,
Mm.
like small steps.
And it was really about just like about taking it one day at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Children, I've realized, understand and know a lot more than we think they understand. You know, those many things that we didn't even have to explain to him. He would just think and just sit and come and ask us questions, you know, and now say, so do I now have two dads, you know? Or, okay, so now is he going to live in our house? Are we going to live in his house? You know, just so many things that he would, and we just ensure that at any point he asks a question, we just answer it as honestly and truthfully as possible, but in a way that he can very easily understand, so that he feels 100% comfortable throughout. And even to this day, I think he still continues to have questions, and but he still is very able to voice them and ask them, knowing that we'll answer him with the truth.
So single parents are not supposed to be afraid to have conversations with their children.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, as a single parent, first and foremost, even before that relationship you're having, you have an obligation towards your child. And if you're in any relationship which you can already feel that your child, they don't treat your child well, or your child is not comfortable, then that's already a sign for you. For me, from the first time Zach and Ethan is his name, from the first time they met, it was like a match made in heaven. They just got along, and it just, I mean, he was so kind to him. He was so friendly with him that at the point at which he even said calling Zach dad, it's not like I told him, now you have to call Zach dad. He just,
Seamless.
it was just seamless. He just started calling him dad. We just one day realized, oh, he actually says dad, you know? And sometimes, like now, depending on who he's referring to, he'll be like, dad number one. Who is dad number one? Because he's here in the house that we live in. And it's just, I mean, the most important thing is ensuring that you're very, very open, so the child isn't left in any kind of ambiguity. You tell him, this is what's happening. Mom and dad are gonna get married, and you know this, we're gonna live in this house, and what, you'll still have a relationship with your other family, and it will just be, you know, so that he didn't feel in any way, scared by the whole situation.
All right. But you have to really be secure, right? In such a case where you're getting in, you have to really be secure, where you are aware that this child also has somebody else.
Somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the security came in how we interacted, because Ethan used to take a leaf of how we interact. So if the fact that we're operating as a unit, she was not saying something and then I say something contradictory,
All
or the
right.
other way around,
Wow.
sort of enabled the transition and my security in terms of I can be an authority figure without trying to muscle my way in, or showing that now I
Yeah.
might be not, I'm not the biological father, but I want to assert my authority. I think that really
Definitely
helped.
helps. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because I brought that because sometimes people begin to have friction on how they handle children,
Yeah.
even when they are their own children.
Mm.
You know, sometimes, just the same way we have issues sometimes in handling finances, sometimes it's with children,
Yeah.
where one parent will feel you're too harsh, as long as you're too soft.
That's true actually, because we still have that even now.
She thinks that I'm soft on him.
He's really soft, by the way. He's always like talking big, but he has never once actually like punished Ethan, like
Like, no,
really.
I've punished
You
him,
punished him,
but
okay,
I've
but
not beaten him.
you've not beaten him.
Yeah.
And but for me, I feel like beating is important. We learned it in our layer class. Not even beating, like pinching. But I
Actually,
feel
that's
like,
the
and I
other
kept
thing that
telling
helps
him
the transition.
exactly. We
Yeah.
took a class before even we got married called Leia as part of Mavuno. So we were now learning like how is he gonna now start being his dad? How
Yeah.
do we deal with issues of discipline? But so I've always told him that I feel like when it comes to discipline, that he's a little scared to actually like now take that extra step of disciplining him. And he's told me that he's scared because he doesn't know how I'm going to react when it happens. And if
Yeah.
I'm being honest, I also don't know.
Exactly.
Because it's never happened. So even me, I'm always just like, no, just do it. But I'm like, oh God, how am
Am
I
I
going
ready
to
for
And
this?
it's
feel when
not
it
just how
happens?
you will react, it's also how Ethan will
Ethan will
react.
react
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, even when I punish him, for example, like when he forgets homework,
Mm.
maybe there's no TV for a week or something like that,
Mm.
he takes it very positively and he commits, like he'll tell you now the
Yeah.
next day, by the way, Dad, I didn't even forget my homework.
Yeah.
So in that case, I find it an effective way of um, like working on his morals,
All
Yeah.
right.
as opposed to beating. And
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Just beat.
So, in a nutshell, somebody is watching you out over there. They're just at the point of beginning, or they want to make the decision. Just about to get married. They may be in the situation that you were in probably 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. What would you say to them?
he has my back, I know he loves me, and he's my friend at the end of it all. It really helps with, going through those times when everything is not rosy. So make sure when you make the choice that it's the right one. Don't do it just because your mom is pushing you or because your friends say, oh, you guys look good together. Don't do it just because you've been dating that guy for 10 years. If he's not the one, he's not the one. Be sure that the person you're with and the person you are marrying is the one for you.
Anyone who's thinking of going into marriage, just think of it of, are you ready to protect that person from everything? Because it's only when you're a unit that you're going to stay together.
All right.
It's one of those quotes that never used to make sense to me
Now
before.
it makes sense.
Now it does.
Now it
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, and some things will make sense to you when you get on the journey of marriage. Well, this has been This Is Us with Zach and Joan. We're taking a short break. Remember to follow us on our social media platforms at KTN Life _style for Twitter and Instagram, KTN Life and Style for Facebook. The hashtag is KTN Life and Style, and we're coming back shortly after the break with Talk to